Okay, so I have 11.
This is what I mean when I say this.
Okay.
The Jalen Brunson All-Star conversation is going to be a tricky one when the time comes, because I do really believe it's going to come down to him versus one of these established, like, perennial All-Stars / All-NBA type of dudes. And I have a funny feeling it's going to come down to the Knicks hanging around 500 longer than people probably think they should. And one of these, whether it's a Chicago, a Washington, or an Indiana. And again, with the caveat that Indiana would have to fall very far because of Halliburton's numbers are so good. It's going to be one of those guys falling off that allows Brunson to get on. Right now, I would have Brunson. I don't know if I guess I'll put him over. I'll put him over Trey right now. And I'll put Butler on my team, with all due respect to Darius Garland, but Darius Garland would probably be my 14th after Trae Young. But man, this is going to be hard.
So to add to that, now that we've taken that tier of haven't played enough and put them on for me, you look deeper at the numbers. Porzingis, God bless him, has made the Mavericks probably regret that trade. He's exactly the plan, the B option that the Mavericks could use right now. Great efficiency. I think he's having a nice year for him. Some of the deeper numbers aren't as good as the other ones. I'm taking him out. Drew Holiday. It feels wrong not to have a second Milwaukee Buck here.
He's not shooting well.
He's at exactly 50 effective field goal percentage, which is a hair ahead of DeJounte Murray. Like you said, 43% or 43.7% from the field, 32 from three. It's strictly a defensive conversation. And when you go to box plus minus, it's 2.4, which is just barely ahead of Porzingis, where he is normally would not make this a conversation. Where he is now, I am taking him out.
I will. One last thing on the Bucks. Bucks have the best defense in the league by a point per 100 possessions over the Clippers, and by nearly 2 points per 100 possessions over the Cavs. Like they're defending really well.
They are. In the spirit of Jared Allen, he will not make my team. I promise.
The spirit of Jared Allen. I did not think I was going to hear this much about Jared Allen on this particular podcast.
Brook Lopez is a 4.5 box plus minus, has a 63 true shooting. Is a 50-40-90 candidate this season.
There you go. Make the Brook Lopez All-Star case. Come on, let's do it. Right now. I'm here for it. How
many attempts? He's taking 6 threes a game and is shooting 41%. From three. He has started every game for.
You want to make a Nick Claxton All-Star case while you're at?
No, not at all. Leave the Brooklyn Nets out of here. Okay. I understand you don't like these centers with low usage, but I appreciate it.
It's just like they're not in the same. You're going to tell me that fucking Jared Allen or Brook Lopez should be in the conversation for an All-Star spot over Jalen Brunson?
I am saying it in the spirit of that. I didn't put either of them on my team. Believe me. I'm just saying in the spirit of it. If I wanted to reward a third Celtic or a second Buck or a third Buck, I guess in this case, while other people aren't eligible in the Claudio Casino, then yes, I would. But since I have now, to make things easier, put all your locks into my All-Star team, I'm taking Drew Holiday off the table. I'm taking Brook Lopez off the table. So it's between the two Hawks and Jalen Brunson. And since Jalen Brunson, despite not shooting well from three this year, although recently has gotten it back up to 32% from the field from three, which would be better than would be worse than all but Giannis and Embiid, who I don't go to for 3-point shooting, and yet still has the same box plus minus as Trey. I will put Jalen Brunson as my 12th man.
Jalen Brunson. Sorry, finish.
No, the Knicks would not. You've said it. The Knicks wouldn't have 9 wins with Jalen Brunson. I'm not 100% sure they'd have 3 wins without Jalen Brunson.
They'd have 3, maybe 4.
Name the 4.
I think they would have beaten the Pistons the first time.
That's it. And maybe the Minnesota game, because
I think they probably wind up. Yeah, they probably win the Minnesota game because they were shooting the lights out. And there's one other game.
Who else has had like a big game and been like, oh, well, we didn't need Jalen Brunson for that one. It's because of this person. Hold on.
I'll tell you right now what other game I think they would have won.
So the Saturday game, or the Friday night game against the Pistons that you didn't do the post game for. RJ had 30, but Brunson pulled away in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, so let's say 3. Let's say they figure out one other. So 3 wins.
Yeah. This is a guy with a 59 true shooting, a 53 effective field goal percentage, enough usage that like he's got the same usage as DeJounte Murray. It's way less usage than Trey, but it's almost a good thing because that's why he gets to be more efficient than Trey and ends up with the same impact as Trey when it comes to box plus minus. Same number of win shares as DeRozan, same number of win shares, better win shares than Jimmy Butler, better win shares than Giannis on the season.
He's pretty good player.
Yes. So there, I made the case for Jalen Brunson. He's my 12th man, my 12th All-Star as of right now.
He is,
and has had to survive on the offensive end with he who shall not be named that plays a combo guard or wing, I guess is what RJ is.
He who shall not be named.
Listen, you don't want me to talk about Julius Randle because I actually would be a defender at this point.
It's not a case.
No, it's not a case for Julius Randle. I'm just saying
there's no case.
When it comes to like he's had to deal with on the offensive end, it's not had to deal with Julius Randle. Julius Randle's been very good offensively, but he's been so bad defensively that you can't talk about how good his offense has been.
He's put up some nice numbers. So
on the offensive end, yeah.
Yes. Jalen Brunson on all shots this year is getting assisted on about a quarter of his shots, 26%. For a point guard that's not elite, it's really good. He's getting assisted on 21% of his shots around the rim. Again, for a point guard, not elite, really, really, really good. He has more points in the paint than any player in basketball. That was not an error. That is a fact. He has more points in the paint than literally any other player in basketball. It's absurd what he's doing, how efficient he is from inside the arc, and when he gets in his wheelhouse. The 3, as you point to, it's not amazing, but it's coming around. The assists are a little lower than
same ballpark. There's a ballpark here. Shooting like 1% worse than Durant from 3, 1% worse than Bradley Beal than DeRozan from 3. Jaylen Brown, Pascal Siakam. These guys are shooting 2% better than him.
I think the tiebreaker for him, and again, this is going to come down to the Knicks hanging around 500, and that's why I so badly wanted one of those shots to go down for him this weekend, because I think it could have been like a real, especially if they beat the Grizzlies. After he missed the shot against the Blazers, if the shot had gone down against the Grizzlies, and that would have polished off a 19-point fourth quarter, leading his team from a 12-point comeback. Talk about a signature win at home over Ja Morant. Again, that's the stuff that when you're building all-star cases, games like that matter. Even with him unable to hit either of the shots, or in the case of the Grizzlies game, the last 2 shots, he's still one of the best clutch players in the league. You know how many turnovers Jalen Brunson has in clutch situations this year?
0.
Oh yeah, that would be 0. And if you go look at all the other guys who have the most field goal attempts in clutch situations throughout the league, is the only guy that he has 0 turnovers. Generally the assist to turnover ratios there. Like, he has a case. It's not a rock solid case right now. And that's not only just because of where the Knicks are at, it's just because of how difficult this is going to be. The East is really good, and there's a lot of really talented guys in the East who are name guys who voters are just going to be like, oh, I'm not going to vote for Jalen Brunson over Bradley Beal, and people are going to do that. So Jalen Brunson is going to have to kind of go over and above. Yeah. This is our general NBA conversation. We're spending a lot of it on Jalen Brunson, but I do think there's a fascinating conversation between all of these guys and what it's going to come down to, because this is a dude who is built. It's an interesting case. It's a very interesting case because he does it in a way that's so unlike anybody else and how they do it. And the pain in the ass of it is he's in this starting lineup that is so dysfunctional, much like DeMar DeRozan, that it's really going to hurt both of their cases. And yet it's not either of those players.
It's dysfunctional defensively. They can't get a stop to save anything.
It's just yes, you're right. It's
like
it's
offensively,
defensively.
They're actually they're going to be a point behind 12th for offensive rating.
Offensively, they've been good. They're a
point behind Brooklyn they're at a 111.9. Brooklyn's at 112.9 for 11th. Their offense has been fine, which is why I want to make clear why I'm frustrated with Julius is clearly different from them. Why you're frustrated with Julius, but
no, it's not.
I think my frustration with Julius was I want to talk about how good you've been offensively, how all the changes that you made last year that we wanted you to make, and I can't because you're so bad defensively.
We are of the same mind.
So if we're of the same mind, that's why I want to make clear. I don't have a complaint about this offense. I wish they'd make more threes, but a team that doesn't make a ton of threes being this good offensively is more of a miracle than anything. It
is ridiculous, which is why we're not getting into a Tibbs conversation on Patreon, but I laugh sometimes. They're smoking mirroring this team to a 15th ranked offense when they can't hit it to the far side of a barn.
You want to have the Tibbs conversation. I would like to know what happens in this 4th and 5th rewatch of the film where he says, "Hey, Julius, you watched this play happen. Not just sitting next to me, but on the court. You watched this play happen. Why?"
The defensive, we'll end with this. The defense. So I was looking this up again. I'm stealing from Tuesday's newsletter. The defensive rating the Knicks big three, Brunson, Julius, and RJ, have played more minutes than any 3-man combination in the league. Their defensive rating is 121.5.
Man, it's terrible.
Do you know? And I know because I did it. I sat down there and I scrolled and I pushed next page. Do you know how many 3-man groupings you have to go through before you get to a 3-man grouping with a worse defensive rating than those three?
It wouldn't just be the next player, next three underneath. What do you mean?
So if by minutes, so they've played the most minutes and they have a 121.5 defensive rating. The 3-man grouping that has played the second most minutes has a lower defensive rating, and so does the third, and so does the fourth. How many do you have to go down the list of highest minute trios before you get to someone with a defensive rating worse than those three?
How many?
67.
67 groupings or 67?
67 3-man groupings.
Okay.
And do you know who the 68th is that has a worse defensive rating?
Who? Hold on. Is it also Julius Randle, RJ Barrett, and somebody else? Isaiah Hartenstein? Okay. That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the thing about Brunson. It's similar to Trey in how they have the same box plus minus, right? And I guess I've used that stat. I probably should have for those who don't know what that is. So you have offensive box plus minus and defensive box plus minus. It's the closest thing I've found when I'm looking at advanced numbers that I'm trying to see what I take seriously and don't. It's the closest thing I've found to WAR in baseball, which is also an imperfect stat, where it values how good you are offensively and how good you are defensively, and then splits the baby. And it's why I point out that Jalen Brown is a negative 1.4 defensive box plus minus, but his offense is just good enough that he's just a 0.4 box plus minus for the year. You go to Brunson and Trey, they have the same box plus minus. Trey is so much more of a negative defensively, but is so much better of an offensive box plus minus that he ends up with the same thing as Brunson. Brunson's barely a negative on the defensive side of the ball, according to this metric. And then you go to his offense, and it's good enough to be the same level of impact as Trae Young, at least this season, with two other high usage guys in the rotation, in the starting lineup with him, one of which has been an inefficient high usage guy. So, that number doesn't shock me. And it's more frustrating as to why this season has almost been the exact opposite of what the last couple of years has been, where it's like, I know we can hold the other team under 110. I have no clue how we're getting to 105.
Yeah, I know
and this season, it's like, I know we can get to 120. I have no clue how we're holding the other team to 125.
Brunson's numbers when you take even one of the other guys out of the equation, Julius or RJ, the numbers of the defensive numbers of the team with Brunson on the floor, outstanding. Not good, not great, outstanding.
Which is why I wonder, as we get into trade deadline season, I know Jeremy said it might not be as much of a priority, but I wonder how much Julius has raised his value. I know defensively he's been awful, but look, I wrote them down just so I could see them compared to everybody else. Julius Randle's not in the All-Star conversation, especially the one we just had, but he's a 53 effective field goal percentage, which is 0.1 below Jalen Brunson, a 58 true shooting. He has the highest offensive rating of his career. He's the most efficient he's been as a Knick, including the season where he made second all-team All-NBA. And then you add in that, like, his 3-point shooting, which we were like, oh no, Julius, stop shooting threes. It's up to 33% for the year, which is the same as Kevin Durant. I want to talk about how good he's been offensively. A, because he has been good. B, because it'll make me forget how historically bad he's been on the defensive end. And C, just in case there's a member of an opposing team's front office listening to our Patreon, he's been really good offensively. You should trade for him. Specifically, a protected first-round pick.
I'm sure that makes up our whole subscriber base. Yeah, he's been good on offense, but we
can't talk about it. He's been so bad defensively that you can't talk about it.
The shame of it is that he's, for as good as he's been on offense, there are still possessions that you're like, I really would rather that possession not happen with him. Whether it's a bad turnover, but although those have been fewer and farther between.
They're very few. Yeah. Like but like you watch other teams, like Steph Curry has bad turnovers. You know, he's so efficient that you don't care. Yeah. But with Julius Randle, you care, especially with how last season went. He finds the open man a lot, and the long twos are almost like non-existent at this point.
The difference is that some Steph Curry turnovers are maddening, but they are part of the larger palette of his game that is so for the greater good of what Golden State is trying to do. Whereas you cannot say the same thing about the bad Randle misses and the bad Randle turnovers. And that is the difference. Although who are we to decide that? And when you look at his offensive numbers and how important they've been, and by the way, the offense has dropped off when he's off the court, and even when Brunson's on there. So
if you're going to, again, drinking game, you should go back and re-listen to this episode. Every time I bring up box plus minus, he's been a positive player for the year. If you just go by this metric alone, it's impossible to it's impossible to ignore the defensive side of the ball. It's also, dear God, RJ, do not look at your advanced numbers.
Yeah, I was about to.
You do not want to see RJ Barrett's advanced metrics when it comes to both sides of the basketball to this metric and many others.
Hold on, let me run VORP in reverse order. Oh my goodness,
it's bad. He has
how many players are there?
Yeah, it's bad. That's all you gotta say is it's bad. On.
So value over replacement player,
negative 0.4.
RJ Barrett ranks. This is not a joke. RJ Barrett ranks 469th out of 472 players. The players that have a lower VORP than RJ Barrett are James Bouknight, who got arrested shortly before the season, Kendrick Nunn, who didn't play last year, and Jeremy Sohan, who is a the developmental project of developmental projects for the Spurs, who are trying very, very hard to lose games and are giving young Jeremy all he could handle. Jabari Smith Jr., who is 19 years old and doesn't know what he's doing on a basketball floor right now, has a higher VORP than RJ Barrett. David Roddy of your fighting Memphis Grizzlies has a higher VORP than RJ Barrett. My Lord, these are some names.
It's actually, look, we shouldn't have made this a shit on RJ Barrett ending to the pod. But the concern for this 20 game sample is like, oh, you are the player you were your rookie year, which is where he has an identical box plus minus, a negative 4.3 and a negative, like he's like the simplicity of win shares, an estimate of the number of wins contributed by a player.
No, I know.
It is 0.0 is his win share so far this season.
It's not.
Yeah, he's got 62 games to get his shit together. I don't think
he's a
player. I think he will be better. Which is the frustrating part about this player is like you keep putting yourself in a hole 20 games into your season that no matter how good you are, the final 62, your overall sample can never be celebrated because, you know, that 20 games did exist.
That's only 3.6 win shares behind Steph Curry. He has more win shares than Evan Fournier. Evan Fournier has negative 0.1 win shares.
Yes, let's turn this into a shit on Fournier ending of the pod. That's fine.